This is not the video that I wanted to make. The art project that I have spent countless hours on, hundreds of dollars on, that I've roped friends and family into spending a lot of their very precious free time helping me on. The amount of effort that went into creating this, to building it, testing it, refining everything, then tearing it all down, and then building it all again out in the desert. I wanted to come on here and tell you that after all of that work and time and money, that the art project was a smashing critical success. But unfortunately, it simply wasn't. Not only was it not a success, 80% of it was pretty much utterly destroyed by the end of the weekend due to factors mostly outside of my control. And what's worse, I barely have any photo and video evidence of it in action, deployed, ready for people to come and explore it, because when I was out at Element 11, I specifically wanted to use my phone as little as possible because I did not want to open it and catch service for 5 seconds, just just enough time to get a news notification that we were going to bomb Iran, which is unfortunately exactly what happened while I was away. All that said, you guys deserve an explanation. So, I'm going to tell you what happened to my ill-fated Reflections art project. So, some of you, there's a dust on my microphone. This is not the video that I wanted to make. After all of that time, after all of that money, after all of that effort that myself and friends and family poured into this Reflections art project for Element 11, I would have loved to come on here and tell you that all that work, all that effort in building it, refining it, then tearing it down, and then building it all over again out in the desert so people could enjoy it, I would have loved to have come on here and told you that it was a smashing, critical success, and I have never felt more fulfilled and validated as an artist than I ever have before. But that would be a utter lie. Not only was it not a success, about 80% of everything I used to create it is now junk. It was completely and utterly destroyed, and it will unfortunately never rise again, or at least it won't in its current iteration. So, I've been back from the desert about a week now. I have finally got my hair into a somewhat healthy state, and I've been to therapy and I've had some time to reflect. So I feel like it's finally time for me to come on here and tell you not only what happened to my ill-fated Reflections art project for Element 11, but also some of the lessons that I learned. So just to set the stage, I am still working on this art project up until 5 a.m. of the day I'm supposed to leave, which is not normally how close I like to cut things. I would have loved to have gotten a little bit more sleep, but regardless, at the very last moment, I realized that I wanted to change a very fundamental aspect of my performance art. I kind of teased what I was going to do to you all. That came out wrong. I intended on demonstrating the art project while I was at Element 11 and capturing video of it and then sharing it with you. Unfortunately, that did not happen, so I'm just going to tell you what the art project was. This is going to get a little technical. Stick around for the actual destruction story, but this part is important. My art project was essentially a structure to house a performance art piece. I had a little glowing sign that says, "Sit here if you carry a wounded heart." And if somebody sat, that would be the trigger for me to engage the performance art piece. I would not speak, I would don a mask, and from a locked trunk, I would produce a handful of little items. I'd produce something that looks like a telescope of some sort. It's like a 35 millimeter slide viewer and a cassette recorder. And they would sit down. I would not speak, but instead I would press play, and my pre-recorded message would begin to play, which I recorded on my computer and then transferred to a tape. And I'm just going to play that part now.
You, listening to this right now, visited a stranger in a strange place. In the darkness and the dust of the desert, you saw a small shrine, mystic lanterns, and a masked figure behind a sign that read simply, "Sit here if you carry a wounded heart." And you are listening to this now because that's exactly what you did. As you sat, the masked stranger approached you, and then you told him your name.
So as you can see, it's a little campy, but I had a ton of fun making this. And the objective of this was just to communicate one, I won't be speaking, and two, kind of set the tone. Assuming they'd give me their name, I would introduce myself, again, just through this recorder. After the introduction, I would then ask them why they sat. What was this injury or wound on their heart that made them sit down and engage with this? And this is where I would incorporate that 35 millimeter slide, which the the part of this, the reason I introduced a slide to this at all is I wanted to trick my participants into leaning forward, into leaning closer to my little setup. And I'll explain why in a minute. But I would get an answer from them, and from there, I'd ask them follow-up questions. What are some words that describe this injury? And this is a way for them to get present, for them to really think about this injury of theirs and allow them to express it in a unique way without getting too many of specific details, or preventing them from going down a rabbit hole, essentially. Allowing them to pick four words instead of just telling me everything that happened, I think gave them enough emotional wiggle room that they didn't feel like they have to open their heart to a complete stranger, which, some people will, many won't. With that said, I would then ask them, what's something, if you heard right now, would potentially heal some of this injury, or partially restore your psyche, your heart, whatever, to a better state? But I had a little trick up my sleeve, because after they told me what sentence might help heal them, I would pull out a mirror and ask them to repeat it, and addressing themselves, looking through the mirror. So this was my sneaky way of getting them to create a positive affirmation and then trick them into speaking it to themselves, right? Teaching not just self-reliance, but specifically for them to validate their own experience, I guess, because this sentence is specifically tailored to this specific injury, and this is what they think is exactly what they need to hear to help fix it. So, in my opinion, very cleverly done, but that is only one trick of two. After they communicated their injury to me, I would then surprise them with a second object. This would not be a mirror, but underneath the table that I was working under was another cassette recorder, which was recording the entire conversation. And at that point, I would stop the recording on the one that was secretly recording and then give that to the participants. So they would not only have like a physical token of this experience, but if they cared to, visit grandpa's house and dig up the old cassette recorder, they could actually hear their own voice delivering to themselves this positive healing affirmation. That was the idea. And while I did get a couple of opportunities to actually perform this, unfortunately, there were a number of factors working against me. Some I knew about, some I could have potentially worked against had I known a couple of things out in advance. And then one gigantic factor utterly outside of my control. The art project was designed to capture people that were not having the best time at a festival. I don't know how many of you are regular festival goers, but either if it's not happened to you, it's happened to one of your friends. Somebody's expectations of the fun, the merriment, the magic, whatever, is not being met, and they get up all up in their feels. For most, the beginning of the festival is not when this is happening. Usually it's about towards the middle or end where expectations and the hope, the excitement that they were feeling has started to ebb a little bit. My performance art piece was for people like that. Wednesday seemed way too early to do this because everybody's still erecting their campsites, their art pieces, their sound structures, shade structures. Didn't seem like the night to do it, even though I finished assembling everything and it was technically ready to go. The next night, this one's totally on me. I got, we'll say, intoxicated, and I could not remember my own part, unfortunately. So that's a bummer. My friends rolled through and they wanted to be the first guinea pigs, and God bless them. I'm so grateful it was my friends and not like passersby or whatever. But it was a complete disaster. Then that whole thing was also recorded, and that's like a gonzo tape now. It was just a complete disaster. The recording was awful. I couldn't remember my lines. There was also like 8 people sitting down and engaging with this, and I wasn't sober, and I'd hold out the recorder to them so they could hear the questions that I was asking them through the recorder, but they didn't realize they were being asked questions. It was such a disaster. So that night I just gave it up and I was like, okay, Saturday and Friday or Friday and Saturday, I will try again. But unfortunately for me, I did get the placement that I technically wanted. I wanted my art installation to be deep out into the desert, the playa as it's called, as possible. And I did get deep placement, but I also got placement right next to a sound camp, which for the record was playing boppers and bangers all weekend long. But unfortunately, it was incredibly loud. And when I tried to deploy this on Friday during the day, during the evening, the bass and just the general merriment was really fighting the volume of my recorder. Had I thought ahead, I could have brought headphones or something like that, or even portable speakers of my own, just to ensure that the volume would be able to at least compete with the soundstage. But unfortunately, the placement was kind of bad, and it made it really difficult to engage with my art piece properly. But I didn't want that to stop me. I went all this way to do this. I wasn't going to let a little bit of noise get in the way of my creation. So I pushed on, but unfortunately for me, we had 2 nights of tropical storm winds and freezing rain on Saturday that completely squashed any hope of being able to deploy this performance art. We knew there would be at least one day of high wind before we left, and we knew it was going to get cold probably about a week in advance, at least for one of the nights. And it was supposed to be Friday. So I tried to do it Friday and was expecting Saturday to be a little bit chillier, but, not windy. Did not happen that way at all. The storm rolls in on Friday, and it is high winds, it is whiteout conditions, and while it's not cold yet, nobody is for most of the day, nobody is outside really. You are either in a camp or your goggles and mask are on and you are going somewhere else. Nobody is hanging out in the playa for any reason. And even if they were, I doubt they would have seen me posted up at my little shrine waiting for people to sit by. And the wind, of course, would have made trying to listen to this recorder completely impossible anyway. And what a wind it was. I was very worried that my art project would not survive, but I made some adjustments to it. There's a canopy, I suppose, that pulls across it. Lashed that together with a few extra bungee cords that I had from my camp, and seemed like it was doing okay, miraculously. And in fact, everything I brought seemed to be working really well for the record. The structure was stable and sound. The seat cushions were heavy enough that the heavy wind that was rolling through were not blowing them away, to my surprise. The chests that I brought everything to store my performance art stuff at the location so I wouldn't have to run them back and forth to my locked vehicle to do it was perfect. It was robust enough that people could sit on it and it wouldn't like creak or get destroyed or anything. Everything was holding up well after I did of some few adjustments. Unfortunately, we had another basically 20-hour period of more high intense winds on Saturday, which also brought freezing rain that evening, which canceled the burn. There was no burn. Effigy did not burn. Temple did not burn. Super, super sad about that. But that wind the second night was even stronger than the night before. And unfortunately for my dear old art project, it completely destroyed it. The tarp that me and my friend Sarah spent so many hours painting was ripped to smithereens, and the 4 lanterns in each corner, by Saturday night, only one was remaining illuminated. Didn't know what happened, if the other ones just broke or there was a short in the wire. Don't know what happened to them, but only one lantern was left lit. Not only was the tarp torn to smithereens, this structure was made out of metal, out of aluminum, and there were points where the wind was so strong that it actually ripped the steel bolts that secured the canvas together out onto the ground. And just by sheer force of wind, some of the 4 corner posts were leaning to one side, not because they were loose and they were rolling backwards because they were not secured to the ground, because I lag bolted the ever loving shit out of those because I didn't want my art project to hurt anybody if it came apart in any kind of inclement weather. But the sheer force of the wind bent it bent the corner posts in a certain direction. Not by a huge amount, but still surprisingly noticeably so. So with all that said, I kind of got up in my feels about it. I was not sad per se, but it was somber. It was thought provoking. And as night descended and it became increasingly clear that not only is the wind not going to ebb, um, the burn probably not going to happen, the fireworks probably not going to happen, but that my window to even do any more performance art was over. I was a little bummed. I was hanging out by my art project. A number of realizations occurred to me. And one of them, I will say I make a pretty cool looking ruin, I have to say. It kind of reminded me of Ireland in a weird way. One of my favorite parts of living there was just the fact that you could have a castle next to a 7-Eleven on one side of the street, and then another ancient ruin on the other side of the street. And between these two ruins, one is actually 500 years older than the other one, even though both are like unconscionably old. Seeing my little structure in tatters was hard, but it had, I have to say, some kind of compelling, haunting quality to it, which maybe this is just cope, but that one lantern hanging there with that sea green light was really quite something, visually speaking. Moving on to some of the other realizations, another thing that happened to me that I thought was really special is somebody used my art piece as like a viewing area for their art piece. One of the days I came out, somebody had installed this incredible piece of work. I know some artists may have been really annoyed that somebody was trying to either share or overshadow my piece, but I loved it. I thought it was incredible that another art piece could interact so seamlessly with mine. And in fact, I feel like they worked phenomenally well together. This idea of if you build it, they will come appeared to me. And the fact that I had this structure and the fact that somebody saw it and saw potential in it to enhance it, I guess, to enhance the experience of anybody walking by, I thought that was really cool. You can see the painting not super well in this picture, and you can see some of the damage from the wind here, but the fact that they put their lights right behind my posts and the chest that contained all of my stuff was the perfect seat to be. It's just, I thought that was really special. And even now, I think that's one of my favorite parts about doing this in the first place. This idea of building something and someone coming in and transforming it in a way I did not expect or could have even imagined. I really, really like that. On a personal level, and the last kind of weird, unexpected thing, Those seat cushions, I just got them off of Facebook Marketplace. I thought they were gonna be like the sort of cushion you would throw on a wooden chair. No, these were actually gigantic, heavy couch cushions, and I got talking to some guy who was clearly not sober. He thought the art pieces, were both mine, and I had to clarify, "No, I built the structure, someone else painted the painting." But he thought that was, like, a very magical, fun coincidence as well, and he's talking to me about this temple that he's building and this podcast that he's starting about cosmic coincidences, and, it's E11. There are people out there like this, and he seems nice enough, so I'm humoring him. But at some point during that rainstorm, that smaller art piece was moved under shade, and this guy I was talking to was wanting to look at the painting some more. And he asked me, "Hey, thank you so much for your project. Do you mind if I borrow your seat cushions to view this painting some more?" That's now been moved into a camp. And by now, obviously, my structure is completely destroyed, and there's no hope. There's no hope of doing any performance art. So I just say you can have those seat cushions, man, if you want. I don't care. It'll be less for me to take back home. And this guy was like shook. I don't think I've made anybody happier in my entire life. The thought of being gifted these seat cushions just like made his fucking evening. Never saw him again, but he did take those seat cushions. So random guy, I hope you enjoy hope you enjoy them wherever they are now. Now for the more interpersonal stuff. By Saturday night, when the wind was rolling through and the rain was coming in and it was the freezing temperatures were arriving, I got a little sentimental about my art project and this idea of her surviving all this bullshit tropical storm winds and freezing temperatures. And despite all of that, there was one lantern that was still glowing, that was still operation. This one. This specific lantern is the one that the entire festival stayed lit. And this is the one that, through the worst of it, stayed illuminated and cast the whole little area in this, in my opinion, very haunting uh, sea blue color. This thing became really symbolic to me. I'm so pleased that my friends Trent and Joey were able to engage with my performance art piece earlier in the week, because I've been talking to them specifically about this idea for a very long time, and I'm thrilled that they got to not just see it, but experience it authentically. But I think it was Trent who pointed out to me that one lantern being lit and called it the Lantern of Hope. And that really stuck with me. This really did become like a symbol of perseverance. Even though I had not had the weekend I was hoping to have by any metric, a lot of people didn't. I still showed up and I still built this thing and I still executed it. And despite everything, despite the wind, despite the storm, there was still a part of it that wouldn't burn out, that wouldn't die. Despite everything that had happened, there was still something beautiful about what I built and was still enduring the worst of the windstorm all the way through to the next morning. There's something meaningful in all of that. There is something really special about that. And I think I want to hold on to this guy and potentially turn it into some kind of camping lantern or even put it in my room or even put it here somewhere. There's something really special about this, you know? Some would call it cope, and perhaps there is some cope involved in this, to be sure. If humans are nothing if not very capable and adaptable, and also we cannot help but imbue things with spirit, Shintoism, as the Japanese call it, personifying things, giving names to cars, inherent objects that we become fond of for whatever reason we project onto them. Seeing this illuminated through the worst of it was really special, and it's something to remind myself the importance of, the ability to withstand and endure despite everything, and despite everything, there is still beauty in this world. The Iran conflict was in the back of my mind all weekend. these ice raids that have been happening all over the country. Just horrible stuff going on. I really did not want my phone out, really felt like I just wanted one weekend away from all of that. And then this lantern, despite heavy winds, is lit in spite of everything. And in spite of everything, this gave me a really special moment. I'm sitting under my shrine. Cold, freezing rain is falling all over me. I'm feeling like I'm looking very mysterious under my shrine, but this thing, despite it all, gave me light. And I think that's cool. I think that's special. And I want to do something with this. Mwah. Don't know what I'm going to do with this yet, but it is very special, very sentimental to me now. With that said, another feeling that I was navigating was this idea that I was upset and angry that I was not upset and angry that my art project was denied and then destroyed. Because to me, anger and grief communicate that something was important and valuable, and to see that not only did I not get many opportunities to even execute my art, but it was also completely destroyed by the festival's end. I would have loved to have been bothered by that, because that would signify that even though this thing I've worked so hard on didn't work out, it was important to me. I want my life to be full of things that are meaningful, and even if they don't work out, I want them to affect me. So I was worried that in hindsight, maybe I didn't care about this as much as I thought, or maybe my desire to go out to this festival was different than what I thought it was. I thought it was about building an art project and touching people with my art and having them engage with it and coming away with it. Maybe it was just I wanted, to cut loose in the desert, and in a way, because it was destroyed, because the winds came in and rendered it inoperable, the pressure was off and I could just wander around and do my own thing. I was afraid that that was the takeaway. And I think in some way, maybe that's partly true, but I think my friends just keep saying, you must be very well adjusted. And that's why. And maybe I am, I'm pretty cool. But with that said, I don't think that was the whole reason. I think partly being well adjusted helps a lot. I think that was part of it, but to be completely honest, I truly don't know why I'm not as bothered as I think I should be. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about it and reflecting about it and its importance and all of the important, awesome things that this project afforded me. I pushed myself. I've done something I've never done before. I learned a whole lot. Had some bonding time with my friends as they helped me work on this thing. And had I not had this project, would not have had those experiences. And while I was there and I didn't get as many opportunities to deploy it, I still got to see people sitting at my shrine when I wasn't there, and that was amazing. I got to see the art project that kind of got a prime viewing set up because of me, and I did get some incredible compliments from people that did engage with it. It wasn't a total loss. Like there are these silver lining things that I've been thinking about and reflecting about and taking away from that are very important, but they just don't have that emotional meat to them, if that makes sense. They just don't have a lot of that emotional weight to them. The last time I was at Element 11, it was truly one of the best weekends of my entire life. And thinking about this festival versus that one, I think it's pretty easy to see why. Last time I had no expectations. I had nothing. It was my first time going. I was just there to explore, connect, and have fun. Had this art project, a much smaller version of it, but much less attached to its success. Not only that, because I wasn't responsible to anybody, I was able just to kind of be a free spirit. So in a way, I feel like there is some truth to not being mad because the wind took away my responsibility to engage with this thing that maybe I didn't want to engage with, because on a subconscious level, it was very stressful. Everything about this trip for the last week and a half, uh, not that it was all bad, but was very, very stressful. Not like working on this project up until 5 a.m. And when I mean working on it, I don't mean like packing it up and getting it into my vehicle, which, by the way, the vehicle, oh, the stupid truck that I bought has had thousands of dollars poured into it and is still not completely tip-top shape. Just trying to make sure that it would be ready to even drive me out there, problems aside. No, me staying up till 5 a.m., loading things up into my lemon truck, that's not what I mean. I was literally executing and refining my performance art pieces up until 5 a.m. the night of. The morning I was supposed to leave. Not only that, I managed to lose my wallet the morning of, and I had to spend an hour in Walmart looking for it, checking security cameras. Luckily, somebody turned it in, and they didn't take anything out of it, luckily. But just there was so much stress to this, and driving out there in a vehicle that has a bad wheel bearing, which, for those of you who don't know, is an awful sound. It sounds like a plane constantly coming in for landing in my driver's side wheel bearing. There's just like so much stress going into this. Maybe the point, maybe the magic of it all, maybe the desire to engage with it all got lost a little bit along the way. Maybe there was some relief. Maybe I didn't want to do it anymore. And the takeaways from it are not a direct result of the performance art, but are kind of things associated with it. Because I did get a lot of joy in seeing people just interacting with it when I wasn't there. And that's important information. If I do an art project for a festival, maybe it is something I just want to set up and then leave, and not have this idea in the back of my mind that, like, I owe it to myself, I owe it to, everyone, to make sure that I'm doing this piece, and I'm stressed about making sure I devote enough time to it, and then obviously ultimately it never mattered in the first place. I think that's part of it too. Am I going to do it again? I don't know. I have about 45 cassette tapes to do something with, and I have some ideas as far as what I want to do with those. I do have a gigantic portable power station, which I'm going to start using for camping trips, I guess. The slide viewer needs some TLC. The power button to turn it on is stuck on because of dust. So I don't know how I'm going to fix that, but that's something to be fixed. But point being, this was so much work, so much stress, and I feel like with lead time, I could mitigate that. But at this moment, the thought of doing all this again, I didn't hate it. I'm not angry. It's just a strange feeling of not even emptiness. When I graduated high school and when I graduated college, there was this feeling that I was expecting to experience of achievement, of pride. And I never felt that. And in fact, there was this sort of stillness emotionally after both of those events that this festival reminds me very much of. And I have decided that it was because that I set an expectation that I feel this way. Everyone tells you that you should be so proud of yourself when you're graduating school, or when you achieve something, when you get an award. And internally, I think I was priming myself for something like that because that's what happened last time. And maybe that was the mistake I made. My expectation was informed on experience, but I still set an expectation. The expectation was grounded in reality, grounded in my experiences before this one, so they weren't unfounded. But the sheer expectation itself maybe undermined it from the very beginning. And even if I'd had a bunch of time to dedicate to it, perhaps I would not have experienced that catharsis for the same reason. So that's something that I thought about and that occurred to me. And the last thing, I suppose, of real importance that I reflected on and learned was my attendance at festivals in the first place. I kind of need a vacation from my vacation, and I am debating if I'm going to go to Burning Man, not with this art project because it is destroyed, but just to go out and have a festival experience. But I don't know if I'll do it. I'll have to have a good reason to go because I think I want to do this again with somebody very special. Last year at Burning Man was supposed to be something like that, and it wasn't. This year, there were so many cute, charming couples out there having these incredible experiences, having so much fun. Some of my friends that went, that brought their partners, there was so much shared joy there that I just think it will be hard for me to stow away my yearning for something like that if I go out to a festival again. I don't know. We'll sad boy moment. It just seems like I have seen and done so much at these festivals that I don't know if there's anything left to be surprised by at this point. I think to be pleasantly surprised, I have to up the ante a little bit. Me bringing this art project was, in a way, me providing an evolution to my experience. But on a personal level, I think the only way that I can do that again is if I intentionally bring somebody with me and we have shared experiences and our connection between each other is able to grow because of those shared experiences. I just don't know if I can do it again as a solo single fellow. At one point there was a wedding at the cicada stage, and boy was that magical. I want to get married at a rave out in the middle of the desert. That it was so magical, and I really appreciated how open it was to anybody that just happened to be around, and how genuine the excitement was, and how special that must have been for them to be celebrated by all of their friends and then 500 people that they don't know, but those 500 people are still wishing them all the best that their friends and family were. It was a really incredible, beautiful, tender moment. And it was inspiring to see, but it was sobering in a way. And my birthday is coming up. I'm not getting any younger. And this yearning I have for shared experiences, for something really deep, something really meaningful, is only growing larger. So I don't know if I'm going to go to a festival again until I can have the festival that I want. With that said, I don't want to set an expectation because that's, partly why maybe I'm at the point that I'm at now. But I could do a festival with friends. I think I could be persuaded to do that because there were a lot of incredible moments that I made with my friends out there. And during the windstorm, they all decided I was very photogenic and took some incredible pictures of me, which I'm very grateful for because I didn't want my phone out at all. I got to learn and understand a lot about some more people that have entered my life, which was really special. So I could go out to a festival with some friends again, but I really want a significant other with me the next time. I don't want to be that guy that gets sad when he sees another couple having their cute special moment. I'm happy for them and all that, yeah, yeah, yeah. I just want that too. So, that's it. That is my tale of woe. And now that I don't have this gigantic art project to work on, the regularly scheduled scripted YouTube content may return. Not may, it will. I'm thrilled to be able to make this video as well. I've been itching to film something. So yeah, that's the tale. Keep your eyes peeled for more regularly scheduled commentary and philosophical content. I think I've said all I have to say, and I'm going to go out and enjoy my night. So peace and love, God bless, and I will see you around.